Today, Rinpoche went over the 10 points related to the suffering of old age and the suffering of illness.
Okay.
On 271 in the English text, we find the beginning of the section that we're in right now. We have the major heading in the outline, which is called the Actual Meditation on Suffering. And under that heading, there are two categories: reflection on the universal or the general suffering of cyclic existence, and then reflection on the specific sufferings. So there are two categories under the major heading. And under that first heading, the reflection on the universal suffering or the general suffering of cyclic existence, we find three categories: reflection on the 8 types of suffering, reflection on the 6 types of suffering, and then reflection on the 3 types of suffering. So now we're in the section specifically dealing with reflection on the 8 types of suffering. So when we look at the outline in the Lamrim Chenmo, it makes it much easier for us to understand specifically what those 8, 6, and 3 are. So the 8 types of suffering are as follows: the suffering of birth, the suffering of old age, the suffering of illness or sickness, and the suffering of death. The suffering of encountering what is unpleasant, the suffering of separation from what is pleasant, the suffering of not getting what you want, and the suffering of the 5 appropriated aggregates. So these are the 8 types of suffering. When we enumerate them by 6, they're as follows: the suffering which is the fault of uncertainty, the suffering which is the fault of insatiability, the suffering which is the fault of casting off bodies repeatedly, the suffering which is the fault of repeated rebirth, the suffering which is the fault of repeatedly descending from the high to the low, and then the suffering which is the fault of having no companions. So this is the enumeration of 6. And then the 3 types of suffering are the suffering, the suffering of change, and the pervasive compounded suffering. So these are the 8, 6, and 3 types of suffering, just listing them by looking at the outline itself. Okay. So beginning with the first of the 8 types of suffering, we have the suffering of birth. And in Lama Tsongkhapa's text, we find that it is broken down into 5 different categories there. But in Jayan Sheba's outline, there is 2 categories, and then the second category also has 2 categories. So J. Rinpoche has these 5 categories, and that's actually the first category of Jayan Sheba's outline, those 5. And then the second category of Jayan Sheva's outline is called a summary of the essence. And the summary of the essence is explained in two ways. So we find that there are two categories under the summary of the essence. We have first it's the summary of the essence, and then we have the more expanded explanation of the summary of the essence. So there are two categories underneath that second category in Jayan Sheva's outline. So this is where we'll start. So we've gone through the suffering of birth already. So now today we're going to start on the suffering of old age. So that's on page 275 in the English. And here we have 5 categories that Lama Tsongkhapa presents again.
So then
Jayan Sheva's outline again has 2 categories. First the category of those 5, and then the summary category. So the first category of the suffering of old age is a handsome body deteriorates, or a beautiful body deteriorates. Your back bends down like a bow, your head is white like the trawa grass flower. Wrinkles cover your forehead like the lines of a cutting board. In ways such as these, youth breaks down and you become unattractive. So Rinpoche went through this. Your back bends down like a bow, so you become hunched over. Your head is white like the drawa grass flower, meaning that your hair turns white as you become older. Wrinkles are the wrinkle lines on your forehead, and Rinpoche went like this. In such ways, youth breaks down and you become unattractive. And that word unattractive, they're choosing unattractive, and it's the same word that we use for the opponent for attachment, meditation on ugliness. So that word unattractive could be translated as ugly in a more coarse way, but it would be more literal. Dixon.
This one. Tanyeba Todu Nyaba Trendua. Nyeba Todu Nyaba ne Duna Sajitaba Cheba Drawa dance ne Lana Shinza Natu Demba Drawa dan Pana Dijins Runa Buba la Subi Sheba was what the Sajineba Rendua. Todu Nyabi Dunget Kande Yuarsana. Duna Sadajivan do Nazuman do Lanza days and do give to the day about Dungachires, Marva, Duna Taba Chebatan Rawa dance, Lana Nishita non Dematan, what the language is, Then, number dance, Dawatan, Hana Chidiji, Katabu Meba, Kasibu Meba, Dejinsa, and then Runa Buba and Runa the Bajil, no combat no trunamon.
The Tama.
Hana Dejinsa, Hana Katabu Meba. Runa Buba, Runa Buba, some to combat to do the Bajil, Charlie Children, Marbe. What the Solas will be doing it, what the Tutu Yanders, Lug, Neba the Yanders, I know what the Neba Yanda, I know what they do not in a Tabachiva Naja, what the which you get along, not be Shingasawa, not Nema Naja language. Then Hana cut dinner. Tabi Umaran Runa. Boba and Runa, then what the Bashil Titun, the Chalchul, what the Tudu Yabi doing it to Sures, Tudu Manana, and do not and Satonjin Teturo, Yalana, Lil Habijalan Tugre, Tene, Mana Tabijil Tugre, Tene, Runa, then Gino Trimmer Tugro. What the Sukangan, what the Yabatle, Tudu Yabidungas, Nibatre.
So the second category is physical strength and vigor deteriorate. For example, when you sit down, you drop like a sack of dirt cut from a rope. When you rise up, it is like uprooting a tree. When you speak, you are incoherent, and when you walk, you stumble. So this first category is when your power or your strength deteriorates. If your strength was there and hadn't deteriorated, it would be you would sit down very calmly and I don't know how to say it, but you would sit down in a much more calm fashion as opposed to just almost falling to sit. And then when you rise up, if your power hasn't deteriorated, it's quite easy to stand. And when you speak, everyone understands you, and you walk in a very straight way without wobbling. The stumble, wobble. Rinpoche showed with his body what it meant, and it's like when you're walking, it's as if you wobble. So as someone whose vigor has deteriorated, when they sit down, they drop very heavy, and then they stand up. It's so difficult to rise up, as if you were tearing roots out of a ground. It's that difficult, and then the words become very unclear as one's physical strength and vigor deteriorates, and then when one walks, one wobbles. So that is the 5. I'm sorry, that's the second of the 5.
Yeah. Zula Suba Sawa Matung Atans, make Zoom Matung, Nai Drama Watan, and Nai Drama Suala Suba, Luigi Yamanuala Suba, what the Genu do, what the Chan Gurata, make Zoom Matung, the Nali, what the Swing said.
Not so neat.
Zoom Matung Atans, then Jenge Chawasa, and Genu do what the Jenge Chabi Pagat Moment. Jenge Chawala Subas, Jenge Chawala Suba Laha, Jenge Chawala Suba, Sube, Tambala Suba, Tundriba was, and the Tambat Tambachi, what the Jindia, what the doing Sumba Dres, Marba. Yeah.
So number 3 is the senses deteriorate. Your eyes cannot see forms clearly and so forth. The power of memory and other faculties wanes due to extreme forgetfulness and so on. So this first, so this is the suffering of your senses deteriorating. So one's eyes can't see as well, and as Rinpoche is speaking in the first person, I already have this, as you can see. I have difficulty seeing, and So this is clearly happened, and the power of memory and other faculties wanes due to extreme forgetfulness. The things that you previously had in your mind in a very stable way become unstable, and you forget them. You forget them. So this is the suffering of the senses deteriorating, which is the number 3 among the 5.
Longsheba menu baos, what the Jibatin Sarvata, ne Yula Longshebi, Yula Longsheba Yonsunyabane, Zatun la Suba, ne Kalatan what the Zubul Chokabo. I know what G Taupa, Rataji, what the Matuba, Kala Kanjuma Zamatuba, Zatun la Suba, Zubul Jokashins, Jean Debi, Yubi, Yunten la. Longsheba Manibos, Susu Deba Yetene, Yeten to Suda Regala Subatasula, Longsheba Manibatres, what the Shebat, what the Yula Longsheba, Lonsunyabi doing it what there is, that
the Ro Reja, Jiro Reja, Reja. Okay. Number 4 is enjoyment of sense objects fades. You have difficulty digesting food and drink, and you cannot enjoy desirable things. So your food becomes difficult to digest, your drinks become difficult to digest, and then it says cannot enjoy desirable objects, so objects of enjoyment. And those objects could be objects that are form, objects that are taste, objects that are sounds, objects that are smells, objects that are tactile sensations. So previously you had this desire for these things, but you can't even enjoy them if you want them. Previously you're able, when this suffering isn't present, to enjoy these things that you want. But as you experience this in suffering, which is the suffering of enjoyment of the sense objects fades, once you have this type of suffering, you can't even enjoy those things that you want. That's it.
Shuba de Tenaya, Yato Semba Wosa, Sebeji Sebe, and then Kasure Sebe, and then Juba Sugar Samaji, what the Juba Sugar, Sugar Sama, what the sun down to send to Hemo Yana Yato Semba was what the J. That the Kunkaba Kabasun, Susan Varisana, Sanjig Jasur Ibare. Jachu Reba Legends, Gayu Gashi, Natsu Ujunas, Gayu Gashi, Gayu Dungaji, and Gawashine, and Natsu Universe, Lujan, but Mabachanu, Natsu Ujunas, Dumbo Najajine, Jumbajin, Dumbo, Shingle Dumbo de Jack Tadula Subi. Tag Jumba Najin, Gai Kuna, Gigi Karun Rasa, Shin Dombo, Tadla Subi, Juba Najin, and Gai Kuna, Nasuki, what the Gai Dunga Kuna, Nangasu, Zubu, what the Kamba Runjuna Bares, Kamba Luchu Junamo, Karun Res, Gai Juma, Toba, Nudu. Newton Mercer. Gayu Juma Toba, Newton Mercer, Gayu, and Chisat one to some to a chan was commando, Newton Mercer. Permit JB Tuna, Gayu Kingsa, Permit Jeba, or not permit in the Jeba in the water to Galo, Gayu King, ane gayi dunga ji shakam chan go res marwa kins chishin sali nala loma jin chishin sali nala loma jin gayus zundu zedan shundu de pana jibu dando shinba jin pana jibu on buja de do marwa gayi zundu ge wade shundu de zundu gayu zundu zedan shundu des na gayi dunga de go wade zundu ge shudan wade ne ba gan yang de se man ro
do nyam.
Penas jibu na de ba 가자 살렘바다 만 사송노데 야랑 카브로 랑첸도 그거네 만노송노고 야랑 카브도데 워든다 버레송데스 쿠인당 나바진 가유 조네 모두시사 가유 등의 주진 셰발라테네 조제바데 조만제바 찬고레스 만제바시고레스 가유 지지 초진 토토 초스 가유 등의 주진 셰발라테네 안는 가서 지지 쳐비줘봐 이나 지지 매바 찬고레 지지 초노고레스 토토 초스 토토데 매바 찬고레스 가유 더와 가유게 안는 가서 더완데 야베요바 이나 가유 등의 갈레갈레 ane dwa tia den dwa me bachan wores troji temperachis gayu chiji gayu danjan trus ane gayu dunga de go de jushe bal den chwa shigres chwa tan chwa dead day ba chiji gayu ane danjan trus so zebute ane wote na tru de maze bachan de she son so de What Ngabasana to Kun Guide the Kunto things are it.
The true ire, the guy dewa, Droshin Yampa J. Natsu the dewa Yam.
What a
Gangisana the NGK, the made gender, the Kaducha Natsu Ladu. Natsu dewa Yomar, the made gender. The Natsu ka ducha laudu.
Jachu Rubales, Jachu Gayu,
JJ Droshin.
Gayu Gashi, Natsu Yujunas, and Dombo, Naja Jin, Jumba Jin, Gayu Kuna, Gigi Karun, Kamba Nubarabres, the Kamba Luju.
They done nga drawa yurbe.
Ah,
they long there, done nga. Drawa. The Tambo Nipa Sumba, is they Yoruba? Okay. Two China. Then Kamba Nimpa?
Yeah. Kamba Nipa Rabres. Then a Gayun Juma Tuba Tutu Nudus. That Gayun Juma was it the Saatuma to Sukalo Tangazu Zutambi in this Aturuta. What the gun at the Nibat Yanders ago. 다 배매 제비 소나 가유킨스 배매의 제바도 가로 네 제비 소도 가로 가부차네 어디 샤감부차는 거라서 그래서 긴샤
자 garpo
샤가비로
샤
조부 뭐데 샤시모는 거로다
샤 garpo
가유킨스 긴바서 감바로 감바
Sha Kambu, Sha Garbo.
Kambu.
Okay, Gongel me Bachigrim.
Jar.
Less so.
Yeah.
Skitty.
Chashi Salinala, Loma Jinsata, Shingil, what the long tomb of Java in what the Shinto Rabram Chana was wrong. Gayu Tundu Zetan, Shutus, Gayu Tundu. Jundu Zetan, Nishu Ngalo, Gayu Chunagre, what the Nebat Mabachanagres, Jundu Ze Mabachanagre, Nishu Mabachanagres. Puna Jibun down to Shimbajins, 기본 당도 신선한 그 구주 당도 말보다 가이 조도 조네 마두시스 가이 주셔발라 때네 조 존제바데 조만제바시노 거레스 가이 지지 tro진스 지지 첨지바이나 가이 동에데 주셔발라 때네 지지 매바차노 거레스 토도 첨지바이나 가이 동에라 때네 토도데 매바차노 거 토도 초 가이 드바트 가이 드바트 게르도 원 집에나 집에 매바차노 거다 드바트지 해버시스 가이 치지 가이 당장 조시 송소스 what contains 야 갈레루나
인치둘루 가웨 the gona jiche the donagare gae gona jiche gang
칭가반도
who drop the gawe gona
가이코나
gawe gona
가바즈 농고즈르베
the gola
오데
gawe gona jiche gang
자치르발레 가유 나초 요주나 동부 나자진의 중바진 가유 코나르베
gawe gona
가유 코나 지지 강른다스 가유 코나 가유 주셔발레 때네 네 코나가 주 조불서 보여지러 네 지바다 지바가 주 조불때 컴바르 루초조 나무레스
the gale jonwa tu
가인 중앙 토반녀도 주스 근데 가서 마게 두고 답이 이제 자통도 그러 칼라 차부 사도 그래 가는 강가 도로
Lesa.
가이 등을 때네 어때 사토바도 그 칼라 사토바 삼토바 자통토바 탐토바 어떤 차는 그래서 그래서 토반녀도 녀도
Okay.
야
So where did these 5 points come from? Where do we find the origin of this? And we find it in a sutra, the extensive sports sutra. It says, think about these points again and again. So think about those 5 points again and again. And then Lama Tsongkhapa shows us the source. So in the extensive sports sutra, it says, as aging progresses and we pass a certain point, we are like a tree struck by lightning, withered by old age, like a terrible, decrepit house. O sage, speak quickly about an escape from old age. Age enfeebles the masses of men and women. As a windstorm strips vines from a grove of sail trees, our age steals our vigor, skill, and strength. It is as though we are stuck in mud. Age makes attractive bodies unattractive. Age steals our glory and our strength. Age steals our happiness and subjects us to insults or unhappiness. Age takes our vigor. Age begets death. So, in looking through this, as we become older, this suffering of aging becomes more and more apparent. It says we are like a tree struck by lightning, withered by old age, like a terrible, decrepit house. So here it's like a wooden house that has become decrepit and withered. Likewise, as all people age, men or women, they become quite withered and skinny as the aging process takes place. And they no longer can enjoy the food and the drinks and so forth as they were able to before, because of this aging process that takes place externally and internally. And then it says, age enfeebles the masses of men and women. So all men and women are subject to this. Subject to this body shriveling and becoming skinnier, and the various sufferings that are found in the suffering of old age. As a windstorm strips vines from a grove of sail trees, age steals our vigor, skill, and strength. As it is as though we are stuck in mud. So our power deteriorates. If we had a lot of charisma before, for instance, then we no longer have that charisma that we previously had. Our strength is no longer there, and everything that we do is very difficult, as if we were fallen into a pit of mud, and we're stuck there and trying to get out. So it's like every task becomes like trying to get out of a pit of mud that one could be stuck in. And then it says age makes attractive bodies unattractive. When someone in their youth, if they were very beautiful, as one ages, old age takes that beauty away, and what was once an attractive body becomes an unattractive body. Age steals our glory and our strength. So our strength and our yeah, that's it. It's a repeat within the commentary. So age steals our glory and our strength. So our charisma, our power, our strength, all of these deteriorate and are stolen by aging. Age steals our happiness and subjects us to insults. I'm trying to find subjects to us and insults in the Tibetan text. I can't find it. What Rinpoche is saying is age steals our happiness and subjects us to unhappiness and causes us to be unhappy. And then age takes our vigor, age begets death. So as we become older, as we age, death is very close. And because death is coming closer, it really makes our minds unpleasant. It causes our minds to feel bad. That's a looser way. We feel badly about this idea that we're going to die. And these thoughts become more and more as we age. So here is where we find those 5 sufferings that Lama Tsongkhapa presented before this quote. Yep, let's
chi dunga toche de yutons chi dunga de shida ge nyaka chibure de ducho totong juma duyo mares ko chib de lansan zo no da geba ne shida nyaka chibure geba dunga de jure ne dunga no ko chigares geba de ga to songos geba dunga de shida ga toche be jure mbo ne dunga no ko chigares Kama Bishenes, and give a KG, Yoyu Tras, Tuji Laona, and Santo Mabasongosa, and then as a guy doing it, Kalika Yota, and then as what the Shidagi doing it, house, Lol Chatu Maras, Tuji give it doing it, Jumaina, and as doing it, Santo Mabayungares, Sonyoares, Santo Man. The
giant Sheba Sache, the
Guy Dungela, not Hippocud Dubarova, Hippocud Dubateres.
The giant Sheba, the Nipa Ewani.
Never what the Guy Dungela, Nasheba, Hippocud Dubas, Hippocud Dubat the Shengas on the. Then
the Nipa Gunda Dupa Ewani. Okay, so in the second just if anybody's taking notes, just a correction here. I don't know if I said it incorrectly, but I just thought it incorrectly, so I might have said it previously incorrectly. In Jayan Sheba's outline, we only have the 2 categories in this section. First, it's the 5, and then there's a summary of the essence. In the summary of the essence, there's just that 1 category. I don't know if I said there were 2. I believe that I did. So here is where we begin the summary of the essence section. Jengawa said, "The pain of death is horrible but brief. How horrible is aging?" Gamapa said, "It is well that aging happens little by little. If it happened all at once, it would be intolerable." So Jengawa is saying that the suffering of death is very bad, but it's very short. Whereas the suffering of aging creeps up little by little and is occurring in a more it's occurring in a gradual fashion. If it were to happen the way that death happens, and that's very quickly, then our minds wouldn't be able to handle it. So our minds wouldn't, Rinpoche literally, our minds wouldn't be able to handle such a thing happening. So that's what is meant in this section, and this section is called the Summary of the Essence in Ajahn Sheba's outline.
And then Larindi Nole, Niba Gai Dunga Sambala Ngales, Zombo Yonsu Yabane, Kiba Jutra Pubatan, Mutai Mutu Tarkawa, Trawa, Tredentar, Nieme, Kimba Suji, Lantunya de Muduba Juba was, Tambaji, Jibaroa, Tanyeba Tutu Yabane, Duna. 사지 타바체바던 라와당 당나 신자나도 너바던 라와 파나 디진 루나 보바수시 도 보바수 셰바오 스니바제 다송바 오버냐바네 메라수베 조수 서와마 통화당 쟁에 쳐와수지 잠발라수바 톤지바오 스와데제 송바르베
That's so.
Ta cheba de yula longshe nyaba ne zatung la soba nju kashin ne jen de la longshe ba na manu ba wos.
That's so.
Jibarbe.
The Kanga Chipa.
Ta tse yongsu nyaba ne nyabi de ne tse peji sebi chiwa la shute tena ya do sen ba wos. 다 니부 구도 되버데 도와다 생아 이제네 최종의 토종의 연통 개버데 토종os 까마비시네 개버 케지 원이자 뒤지라오나 산 매보 시송소 Lamrim
So in the medium stages of the path, the medium Lamrim, Lama Tsongkhapa presents these 5 as well. So he presents these 5 and then the summary of the essence. So it reads the same. So a handsome body number 1. The suffering of old age. A handsome body deteriorates. Your back bends down like a bow. Your head is white like a drawa grass flower. Wrinkles cover your forehead like the lines of a cutting board. In ways such as these, youth breaks down and you become unattractive. And number 2, physical strength and vigor deteriorate. For example, when you sit down, you drop like a sack of dirt cut from a rope. When you rise up, it is like uprooting a tree. When you speak, you are incoherent, and when you walk, you stumble. The senses deteriorate. Your eyes cannot see forms clearly, and so forth. The power of memory and the other faculties wanes due to extreme forgetfulness, and so on. So the power of the memory and other faculties becomes less stable due to extreme forgetfulness, and so on. So the things in your mind aren't as stable. The word stable is in the Tibetan. Enjoyment of the sense objects fades. You have difficulty digesting food and drink and cannot enjoy desirable objects. And then number 5, the deterioration of life is painful. As your life nears exhaustion, you head rapidly towards death. And then it moves in the medium stages of the path right to Jeng'awa said, the pain of death is horrible but brief. How horrible is aging? Gamapa said, it is well that aging happens a little by little. If it happened at once, our minds could not handle it, or it would be intolerable. So now we've gone over the first suffering of birth, and the second suffering of old age. And now we move on to the suffering of illness, or the suffering of sickness. And here we don't have a summary of the essence. We just have the outline of those five. Okay, we'll take a short break and have some snacks. Okay? Dixon.
당아주 치등에 나 차지 다 가이 등에 차지 당아주 송바 나이 등에로 나이 등에 와트 나이 등에 나래도 나 나이 등에 나지 나이 등에 나래 동보 르지 장진 조와데 zuji 샤송바당 강바 소소스 와트 르지 등에 나이 등에 나이 담부들도 르지르 zubu tama nubayoba zunzebo zukngalo jone ko gebe chan jone uroda luje ne shaba kimbasu shaba ba skin la zukngalo kambu chan moduba chan tambuje tani ba donge da yeme de peshin tela shecher ne ba ne 르지 출라소바 출라소비 칸나 참냐바 시제 조정도 초비 르라 동아 지진사 다니바 테렌도 르지 다가르소레 르지 니바 송바로와 니바데 르지 이메데 페이션스 동에다 이메데 페이션스 니바데 동에다 이메데 동에서나 르지 동에서 면도 ngazu zobu lul 동에로 원시 냐도 동에도 줄 안에 동에지 이메데서나 이지 가서 그래 샤비린 빌리도 봐 네 동에다 이메데 페이션스 동에서나 르지 동에 안에 이메데서나 이지 동에 이제와 페이션스 na lul dunga ta il dunga mo peijin tela shechi ne banes ne luji dunga ta senji imado wade ane yong ne ate lu momul wade dunga nyungu jigres peijin tela shechi ne banes luji shechi lu mombo luji chula subi kanas tanga zubul juanga ma juanga
Okay.
juanga chula subi juanga cha nyaba jona dewa imbare o tu cha ma nyaba cha mo dul dunga jong da chula subi kana cha ma nyaba sheche nyodu chube lula donga jeba wosa ta zubul sa chumelu o tu zukalo cha nyaba jona dewa insarwa 차마냐 바래온들 고때 중앙의 투네 안에 룰도게 일도게 용거서래 농아지 진사 대생라 이메드 집에서 카마냐 별로지도 동에 중앙을 때는 생 이메드 레옹거스 이시쿠지 소아 삼바종 이메드 집에 니세 다고보스 어디 니바데 송바레
The Nipa, Sumba,
니바로
Yogi Longshu Yidu.
what about the Jujan
Okay. So the suffering of illness, here there are also 5 points to contemplate. Illness changes the nature of the body. The flesh wastes away, the skin dries out, and so forth. Number 2, pain and anguish increase and are seldom absent. The elements of the body, water, earth, air, and fire, are not in equilibrium and fluctuate chaotically, causing physical torment, which in turn produces mental anguish. You spend night and day in this state. So first, illness changes the nature of the body. The Rinpoche, the Tambo, the Lugi Sha Shupa, Gepa kamba so gepa kamba
Luigi Rajin yo and Luigi Shashos Papa Gimba Shashosana Shama Chushun Shaba Shashos.
Okay.
Shashuro Papa to Kombucha.
Kombucha. Okay. They get true. So illness changes the nature of the body. So the flesh wastes away. So I asked Rinpoche what that means, and he said it shrinks. The skin begins to shrink and wither and dry out, become very dry, and so forth. So when you are ill, the nature of your body changes. So these are 2 points that are made under the first point of the suffering of among the 5 points of the suffering of illness. Number 2, pain and anguish increase and are seldom absent. The elements of the body, water, earth, air, and fire, are not in equilibrium and fluctuate chaotically, causing physical torment, which in turn produces mental anguish. You spend night and day in this state. So when you have the suffering of illness, pain and anguish increase and are always there. So it says, and are seldom absent. So our body is made up of elements: earth, water, wind, and fire. Earth, water, wind, and fire, and then space, if you count that. So these elements, if they are balanced, one is in a state of happiness. So if one's elements are in balance, or if there's an equilibrium with the elements, then there's a state of happiness. If there's any unbalance in the elements themselves, then suffering occurs and unhappiness occurs. So when you are ill, the nature changes, so the elements change in such a way that they produce a pain and don't produce happiness because they are out of balance. So it says, fluctuate chaotically, causing physical torment, so causing physical suffering, physical pain, which in turn produces mental anguish. So you're having a physical suffering, and that physical suffering then causes your mind to be in a state that isn't pleasant as well, so your mind to be in pain, so mental anguish. And then it says you spend day and night in this state, so it's a continuous state of physical torment and mental anguish because the elements are out of balance, therefore there's a state of pain that takes place, and that state of pain physically then transforms into a mental pain that's always occurring. So these are the first meaning of the first two.
Idong yu na las ne la ne se ne de jin to jiwa me ba de sa ta idong yu sa tong a tong wa te su kang lo ne sa de ba yo a de na sal ne gre se no de ne sa gong wa sha me ba cha gres me ba de te jin to Shulang Khan Deba Na Shamabo Tejinto Shulang Khan Deba and then Duyatan Niata what Sukangalo and the Susun Deba Yaba Najin and the Shameba Chiamabo the Chabatote Dungasum Sumba de Resa Sumba. What did you do?
Number 3, there is no desire for attractive things. So things that you find attractive, you don't have a desire for when you have the suffering of illness. As you are told that desirable things harm those who are sick, you cannot indulge in them freely, and you do not have the range of movement and postures that you wish. So, Rinpoche, the NGK, the Natsa Yuna, the Yiptu Wa Yul Nugudu.
Nata Yuna?
Yiptu Wa Yul the Natsun Nugudu.
Yidu Moyu to Zukalo, and Susu Satu Maris, Karasana, Nasal Nugresene, what is Anna Nasal Nugur Mazas,
Okay.
샤즈 치모 마자스.
lesson.
안 자가보 마통아서 what 는 아주 로도 말베.
Okay.
what 순이사 말베. 문도진도 제보 온매바데사. 대진도 쉐랑 칸라야 더바나 샤메보사. 니야던 도야던 로야던 참말로데 소술 주불 뉘스네 드라마베 찬고 거지로 What about those?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to go back over number 3. There is no desire for attractive things, as you are told that desirable things harm those who are sick. So I asked Rinpoche about that, and he said that, for instance, when you have an illness of some sort, you're told to abstain from certain things, and they might be things that you want, so such as they say you shouldn't drink milk tea if you have this illness, for instance. So that would be an example of something that one would want, but they'd be prescribed not to have. And then also, Rinpoche explained first, is that food and drink becomes difficult to eat. So when you have an illness, even if you want a specific kind of food, for instance, the illness prevents you from being able to indulge in it or to really enjoy it. So even though you desire it, you really can't eat or drink whatever that is because of the illness that you have. It says you cannot indulge. It says there is no desire for attractive things, as you are told that desirable things harm those who are sick. You cannot indulge in them freely, and you do not have the range of movements and postures that you wish. This 2 ways again. When you are ill, you don't have the same flexibility and balance and so forth. But also you are told, if you have a certain illness, you're told, don't move in this way or don't move in that way, because that can harm you, harm your illness. Or don't exercise in this way, or move around in this way, because it's not good for you. So these are all suffering of illness, that is there is no desire for attractive things. And number 3,
Jiba
yogi longshu.
Jiba as yuji longshu yidu moa ana chuju sa ndoba mando jindo na rama ba jigo ba wate dunga yuares yuji longshu yidu moa la mando jindo jigo ba ne sa mando ba tong mando jindo sa go ba na tong mando jindo tong go ba tan yongres ana ngaso mhegre tende nasal mhegre zeta shemba mena sagugure shemba mena tonguru mhe sagugure tonguru o tu tsin samarba je goba ne sa mhe dans mhe tu mendo je sagugure tonguru da na zaton ana zaton su sere zaton su yi ga wa Neji Jadun Su se Yigar Moa, Neji Chigushins, and the Hill Gabba maybe in the Sa Natua, and the Mendojinto, Saguba, Tonguba Yungores, Chigushins, Nasuna, Mendojin Mensagure, Mendojin Tongur da. Tejinto Mendojinto Mesiba. Ana nga so mheba so zubul mage matan jana mesi hote tena aberration chunji to ba suji ne ji zubu na tengo ba hos what is about there is that ana mendojinto hote zubul nasal de me pejoje ya tena chunji aberration ta ya what then ge dunga mo tengo jigres Jiba Teresa,
the Tama Kaja. Kaja. Jiba Tama. The Meja Dang.
Mensiba Danserwa.
Mensiba Dang Gare.
Chenjibubas. Chenjibuchi.
Operation Ale, the NGK, the Kaja Dang trouble too. Okay.
Chitubana, Tanguba was Aberishi.
Okay.
Nazujino Marbet, Ruguda, Shataka Chandra.
Bless him.
What is something said?
Okay. Number 4, you must have recourse, however unwillingly, to unpleasant objects. So when you're sick, you have to eat and drink and take medicines that you might not want to, or might not desire, or that don't taste good, or that are unpleasant. It says the sick are forced to take unpalatable medicine, food and drink, and the like, and have to rely on harsh therapies that involve such things as being burned with fire and being penetrated by instruments. So when you are ill, you don't have the kind of independence that you normally would in relation to food and drink and so forth. You have to do whatever it is to benefit the illness, to cure the illness. So you're forced to eat medicine that you don't want to, that doesn't taste good, and eat food, or have some sort of drink that is a therapy that is unpleasant. And it says forced, so you don't have any real independence or choice. If you want to get well, you're forced into taking these things that you don't want to. And it says involve such things as being burned with fire. So various therapies where there's a burning involved, such as moxibustion, and it says, or being penetrated with instruments. Rinpoche said that's when you are cut open or having an operation. You are so that's what that means, like being cut open or having an operation. So that's number 4.
ngaba suku ngaba dan jawan jowa nes ngaba ane nai de ngaba de suku ngaba dan jawan jowa nes ne ma so tu ne dunge je ba des to nasa na ne ya tra ma tu ba de ha ko ne den dunge che bu yong res dunge je ba de tena la shin do sen ba wo sa 다 나서 야 자서 말은가 시거를 삼고때 뒤다도 것도 동에 몸이 그래서
Number 5, you lose your vital energy. It is painful to realize that your illness is terminal. So you have an illness and you find out that there's no cure for that illness. It won't go away. And then you know that you're going to die. So that causes pain, that causes suffering. So that's number 5.
다도수 콘도 가봐요 와서 자주를 발을 송요 와레스 다 자주를 보던들 간주 놀려래 자주를 발레 장하사 내자 모다 내티 동해지스 내자 모다 내티 동해지스 어때 내가 나라 몸보다 ane neje wate dunge de zubul dunge dunga taki Geshe bala tene roa te mei rida jins roa tu sukngalo ane doa de meba te mei rida jins mei rida jin gada nayu jumbi de lasa ta jachu balawate neja moda neti dungeji roachi des neja moda neti dunge subul dunge mombu yesa tegi Geshe balate ne roatu sul roachi des meirda jins roatu ko meirda nabres gai dunge nayu dunge ji chombi wade chone gai dunge mel gai dunge yuare nayu dunge yungduas wate sul mi tu sen marbe chombi rutu las dunge le ne jwa nyu shue ji se dunge le ne jwa nyu shue ji bena gume longtemps kawaches ne gumel tene long mo bero hente ne kawa tangro sonang kawache zashin geba nase na henda jang chugose ane wade kan tang long dus je on dule 자당 신도这个路个就是嘛呗，里边个买不chan的肉的，자신给吧，那没当讲出啥，当讲出里边买不chan的，是不chan的个人，我都是得的了，这哪些一个占卜，那说个说不拿啥么不有啥，拿啥的就是把了的呢，运当讲出啥。那我在那啥的月上，说个说这不就把人家说的嘛，这不说那个人是当讲出，我不说当，都人家不写是，我不谁不就把人家谁不买不钱那个人，都大件就把人家都买不钱那，都人家不写，那钱他们谁不写是，那钱他们谁不写是，那是呢，那。嘛从这路开始过来，西当、外当，我那加拉蒙不有嘛的，那钱，那都是那这个人就是嘛的呗，那跑了我的来西当都说，我都是跟人就不做那个人是那钱，他们谁不的些是，该等人得了点呢，我的加拉跟个做那个人是不是的，啥样当，那大多着啊。念不些，那大多，罗念不些是罗就是讲，罗那个送的啥的，那不些钱，等下当我些是，那啥这个我那啥有人刚才的那个罗的，那啥的刚才的刚才那个是等下钱我的是，等下当我些，用书东西，那看了你嘛钱是用书东西，看了你嘛钱写不好是。用书东西，看了你嘛人，那看了你嘛下个罗这个，心都刚不强的，就是为了不加倍呢，写松说空定啥的，因就看来就路呢。
因为Rinpoche的drawa sete me jeda de donegare jeda
jeda roa
jeda
jeda是毛巾安的毛
三女通啊
对
抓不对对没对真住对那个切个都
那叫毛的那天都爱接是就是把了点呢罗那记得没热大心是没热大那没都是跟热大的嘛的没热大心一个这样不嘛的吧那没热大心那该都爱用过的哪一都爱用过的那哪一都爱去准备我的罗个那出都是米都是对了是都爱来呢用啊你学习是都爱来呢都爱来呢用啊都爱来呢用啊你学习不能根本弄当考下去扎心给吧南面当讲出南面当就出他跟偏的把考当用过的弄我的那些用的新个罗马跟个啥新是不恰我的那些我的那啥这个那做这不做本这把当我的那个新么都不恰那些不加的啥嘛的呗这难的这的难个就是把了点呢运当讲出是主要是这不就把呢那才有张那困当出那做不呢做不那么多恰那个的是我不做当都娘把些是我不做每个做通啊那一扎对吧了说吧谁不有把呢都是跟个娘呢那都娘把些他能是呢那个是来些当把里跑了我都什么西都什么的呗我都是没有把呢呀那个哪啥没有种特别就现在刚上我都是跟个了做那个人是能都那些他们谁不些那大多多少不那这个大多多的那个人是现不些那把些钱那啥这个做不那个了那啥有些那啥对吧呢没得做不的那个了那把些钱 동해 동아시스 너그 너네 안에 어디 동해 제용으로스 용수 동시 칼레냐마신 용수 동시 칼레냐마신 셰송소스 용수 동시 칼레냐마신 어디 인실 컨디션
Decent. Reflect with care upon these points, as the Extensive Sport Sutra says. So where do we find these five? Where did Lama Tsongkhapa come up with these? We find them in the Kangjur, which are the pronouncements of Lord Buddha, and specifically it's called the Extensive Sport Sutra. It says, hundreds of illness and the pain of rampant disease afflict us just as humans oppress wild animals. I'll go through it. Regard the beings overwhelmed by old age and disease and quickly speak about escape from suffering. In deep winter, wind and great blizzards take the vigor from grasses, shrubs, trees, and herbs. In the same way, disease takes the vigor out of living beings. It breaks down their faculties, physical appearance, and strength. It will drain a great fortune and wealth and grain to the last. Disease constantly humiliates living beings. It harms them and is contemptuous of beauty. It torments them like the sun beating down from the sky. These illnesses and the suffering of diseases oppress us like humans oppress wild animals. So it says, afflict us just as humans oppress wild animals. So they have a hold of us and dictate what we will do. Regard the beings overwhelmed by old age and disease, and quickly speak about the escape from suffering. So look at the suffering of old age, look at the suffering of sickness, and quickly speak about escape from suffering. In deep winter, wind and great blizzards take the vigor from grasses, shrubs, trees, and herbs. In the same way, disease takes the vigor out of living beings. It breaks down their faculties, physical appearance, and strength. So when one is ill, when one is ill or has a disease, one's strength leaves, the faculties weaken, one's sense of smell is not the same, one's sense of taste is not the same, one's the way tactile sensations feel is not the same. And then when one is sick, physical appearance changes. It turns to almost an ugly appearance, an unattractive appearance. When you're ill, and strength. So it breaks down your faculties, your ability to see and taste and smell and so forth, and your appearance, and then the power that you have, your strength, your ability to do things is weakened. It will drain a great fortune and wealth and grain to the last. So wealth is referring to this word is they've translated as wealth, but in the Tibetan it's a word that needs to be explained, and it means wealth, and it's wealth is gold and silver and things like that, things that are worth money. Disease constantly humiliates beings. So disease always causes suffering for living beings. It harms them and is contemptuous of beauty. It causes harm and causes those beings' beauty to go away. It torments like the sun beating down from the sky. So the sun beating down for a long period of time dries things out and makes them wither. Likewise, when you have an illness, it's similar to this torment of the sun beating down from the sky. So Rinpoche, when explained the sun beating down from the sky, maybe it's when you're in the sun for a long time, you dry up, like you burn and dry up. So if it's compared to having an illness, is compared to that kind of torment, that kind of suffering that one would experience having the sun beat down on them for a long period of time. Digsum.
딱 나이 등행가 도드나리 중문들도 갈레로 나오데 중문단 저버가 놓다 주로 나이 등행라 레스 르지 라진 조와네 르지 샤쇼 빠바 강바 소소스 담부제 다니바 등에다 이 메디테이션 틀라시체 네바네 르지 출라수비 칸나 사주문로 칸나 차마냐바 시체중도 추베 르라 동아 제진 대생라 마도와 제베 내생다 고소 니바제
That's so.
다 유지 롱쇼 이동와 유지 롱쇼 이동와 만도바 이동와 만도바네 이동유 유나라 내라 너스네스 수수사 이동와 동아 이동와 두걸로 사 이동와 삼투 동아 이름도 동무주바 가르스나 나살 너그르스네 안에 어디 칼라심이나 삼투바 안에 동무도 어디 등에 요아레스
That's so.
유나라 내라 너스네 드지도 지와메버테 드지도 쇼론 칸도야 샤메보스 안루야던 두야던 예야도 그걸로 나서만 그거데 소설라메 등에 요아레스 what jebare sombare
This
somba
No, Rama Mepa Jipa.
jebaro ta yu de do mo mende jindo jegobanes ta jeba do wate ma jeba ne yu ji longshu yido mo mende jindo jego na ga zum pe mende jindo sa gore dong gore marbe what to say the do yu ji longshu yido mo mende jindo jego ba ne pe
that's
mende jindo me sa go ya tong ya ne za dong la so yido mo 내지 지구로스 대지도 메시바다 아브리시 천지 뭐바수 제주부나 대고바오스 와드지바디사레
That's so, Tata.
당아바드레도 수던 저완조와 네스 네모소 통네스 당아나서 자사 말에서네 오다시그르선 오드선다네 등에 몸을 오데 등에 누구지그레스
That's so.
네모소 통네 등에 제바데 대지도 드나라 시도 셈바오스 와드레샤 라니 총고.
So in the medium stages of the Lamrim, we find these 5 enumerated as well. So it reads the same way. So the suffering of illness has 5 points. Illness changes the nature of the body. The flesh wastes away, the skin dries out, and so forth. Number 2, pain and anguish increase and are seldom absent. The elements of the body, water, earth, air, and fire are not in equilibrium and fluctuate chaotically, causing physical torment, which in turns produces mental anguish. You spend day and night in this state. There is no desire for attractive things, as you are told that desirable things harm those who are sick. You cannot indulge in them freely, and you do not have the range of movement and the postures that you wish. So here, you want to have certain things, you desire them, but you're told that if you that they're harmful for you if you're sick, and that you shouldn't indulge in them. So this causes a state of suffering, and you don't have the same kind of independence related to your movement that you had previously. Number 4, you must have recourse, however unwillingly, to unpleasant objects. The sick are forced to take unpalatable medicine, food, and drink, and the like, and have to rely on harsh therapies that involve such things as being burned with fire and being penetrated with instruments. So having to take unpleasant medicines or food or drinks that serve as a remedy for your illness, or having to do some sort of a harsh therapy where you're burned or cut open during an operation. So this is all under number 4. And then number 5, you lose your vital energy. It is painful to realize that your illness is terminal. So once you recognize that whatever illness you have you are going to die from, then at that point, once that realization takes place, you suffer. So these are the 5 sufferings of illness found in the medium stage of the path to enlightenment. Lama Tsongkhapa's smaller Lamrim.
단 지 등에 가서 지 등에 가이 등에 나이 등 사로 다 치등을 어다 제바 치등에 버려 치등을 나 상발에 나한테 어들 나세도 맞지 사진이 모두 나한테서 롱쇼 두바 방송 초바던 태와스 롱쇼 두바 방송 초바던 태와 다음면와 잔진 두바 방송 초바던 태와니지 오늘 코두바 방송 초바던 태와 르두바 오늘 방송 초바던 태와 치체 등에다 이메데 잡부 용화때 너나 이메데와 이 좋아 마주지 봐도 영생 보고서 와도 봐도 치등에 상바딩 상마르바 다 치등에 상바랑아데 롱슈 도바 방송소바다 저와스 다 첸드들레 롱쇼 도바 카마피다부 요난다 모타피다부 요바이난다 세당은 가지 요바이나 더더 되는 말베 더더 되는 동에데 담보레스다 통송소바다 자와스 담보지 다니바 잔진 도바 방송소바다 소수 자와치버던 게 안 가려 요바이나 더 타지도 되는 거 니바지 코도바 방송소바다 자와 수수 파마다 보고다 안 수수 조보다 간적이 조보비다 가지 여바인 대단 되는 거로다
니바 오케이
송보 말베 롱쇼 도바 방송소바다 자와 담배이지로 다스 롱쇼 도바 방송소바다 다 롱쇼 가지게 세당무도 칸바트 잘라 가지 여바이나 대단 되는 거로 치등에 담부지 잔진 두바 방송 소바다 자와 수수 사와체보 네 간대지여 바이네 더 타지 되는 거래서 니바지
사와 쳔보 the kinsan 파마
수수 모던다 다 와던데 바인 자와체보 말베다 세동의다 두수 사와체보로 잔진 두바스 잔진 두바
니바 차바가레
노쇼 두바 노쇼 방송 소바다 자와 노쇼
신단 사와 가우
저술 쳐봐 요랬다 쳐봐 잔지도 방송 소바스 수수 싸워치부지 대야 주요 말বে 싸워치부 어떤 어디서다 개치면서 대야지 잔지도 방송 소바도 자와지 그 방송 소바 파마지 보고지 그게 그쪽 어떤 게 방송 소바도 자와 인지로 ane loma tuta mambo yoba ina shindu ta tene gre ane phama yona phama ta tene gre pogo pi ta bu yona ta tene gro tawa ta le doba phansu soba ta jawa zon zebe yabu shibu yoba ina ya shindu de wa ta tene gro chi se donga ta yimede trabu nyote sa chi se ne loji dunga ta il dunga ne shu trabu nyote tenala yi joa majuji batos tenala santa nganyu sama maji bato yane ya gongwares yane ya semba os chi dunga otbatre tebat roji la nga zun la chongji luna
leso then tambo na nipa the sawa chembo dan longshu chembo chapagare the sawa longshu the tambo the longshu dan drawa the nipa sawa chembo dan drawa the sawa chembo the NGK the kimsan pama dan ama then sumba trobo dan drawa nipa pama dan ama dan the chocho dan drawa sumba trobo dan drawa
다 나린 중원데 도와데 나린 중원데 치 등에 상발라 나레스 롱슈 잔지 코르 드디 제도 롱슈 편송 소바다 태와 잔지 편송 소바다 태와 코 편송 소바다 태와 롱슈 잔지 코르스 류자건도와 le doba 편송 소바다 제단 태와자 안 존재비지나 어떻게 되는 거로다. 치체 동에다 이메데 잡은요데 드나라 이 조아 마주지바도 양생바오사 어떠바도데 라니 총어들에자
Then the Nipa show sena, Nipa the guard gel show sena, the boot.
다 라니 총은 되두래 다 롱쇼 도바다 트라와
Tambo.
자제 도바다 트라와
Zazing show sena.
자제스 싸치고라 싸치고
So it's Chenmo.
맞아 나잘라 싸치고시라
Okay.
어디 자제 쳐서
Okay. So we'll do.
야
To Chenrezig check. Sorry, there's just some things in here just to clarify. So the suffering of death, again, there are 5 points to contemplate. So we've gone over the suffering of birth, we've gone over the suffering of old age, we've gone over the suffering of sickness or illness, and now we're on the suffering of death. And here we have 5 points, and there aren't any more than that in Jayan Sheba's outline. So we don't find any other sections than we already have in this. So it's the same. So the first, you are separated from objects that are fine and attractive. So you're separated from your enjoyments. So if you have a house, or if you have car, or if you have gold, or if you have silver, jewelry, all of these things, you will be separated from all of these things when you die. So that's the meaning of the first one. The second one, you are separated from close relatives who are fine and attractive. In the Tibetan, it says you are separated from your important things, or things that are important to you, so that are fine and attractive. I asked Rinpoche, that's why what we were discussing. Here it talks of close relatives, but the Tibetan really speaks of things that are important. So you're separated from what's important to you. Number 3, you are separated from companions who are fine and attractive. So here, in this category, you're separated from your teachers, from your students, from your children, from your parents. Whatever relationships are important to you, you're separated from them when you die. You are deprived of a body that is fine and attractive. No matter how beautiful you are, when you die, that body is gone. So that fine, attractive body is no longer when you die. You're separated from it. As you die, you experience terrible pain and anguish. So the actual experience of death causes a great amount of suffering. Okay, so we're going to end class right there. We have a few minutes left. Rinpoche said if anybody has a question, if not, we'll do the concluding mandala offering and dedication prayer. True, you'll mark it. Okay, Stasha, Triwa, you're right.
Yeah.
In thinking about single-pointed meditation and analytical meditation, I'm a bit confused about unwavering analytical meditation. It seems like to me analytical is contemplation.
Less so.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Avoiding laxity and excitement during analytical meditation seems...
Calling true, the Gom Yi Yure, Jegong Nanjugong. The Lamrim Chenmo Nangla, the Jegong Sheru Gudu, Jegong the Guba Dandrawa, Shwan Dandrawa Gudu. Yene, the Jegong, the Sanlo Mambo Gu, then a Kandre, the Dandrawa, Gang in Sena, the Sanlo Mambo Dangu, the Jegona, then the Dang Sem Mupa Dang Sem Guba Chapagare, Sanlo Mambo Dang. Jegong the Kandre.
Jegong da Jusen la ten marbe.
That's it.
Buna ngatu demba maru tende imbeje. Buna zonye jins. Tende yinza anako pombola matu rawa diyo maris. Pombola matu ro daje 다시 두비 따발아 맞고 라와도 매바들 주신 산다는 어때 센슈ችን 로고데
the Lamatsong Kappa, the Jegom, the Gupa Dandrawa, the Kandre, the Dondegare.
지금은 다 돈이 산다는 게 돈이 제는 공부로 다 댄드 산다는 걸로 당 돈이 산다는 걸로 가가로 다 댄드 이미 주sen지 대바 마르고 산다블로 되 돈이 공부로 대 댄드 통고만 다 어디 돈이 산다는 게 돈이 맞도 제다 산다는 거
Then the Shiwan Dangupa, Shiwan Gare.
어다
The Jegom, the Shiwan Dandrawa.
시마산나 돈이 산다나 돈이 롤 차대 임발 세부매나 신화 임발 신
Less so.
신화 아니 돈이 롤 차바 임발 생 종부지고 말로 뭐둘 쳐져 잡았나시 손생 종부면 돈이 차자대 말로 대 신화 참을 되는 건도
Okay, so when you're so there's two kinds of meditation: single-pointed and analytical meditation. So when you're doing analytical meditation, you're relying on reasons and so forth about a specific topic to come to an understanding of it. So it says that you should be free from excitement and lethargy or laxity, or sometimes dullness it's translated as. So when you are engaging in analytical meditation, for instance on emptiness, if there is excitement present within your analysis, you move from a different object of observation than the one that you're supposed to be analyzing. So if you're engaging in an analysis of emptiness, then you're only using reasons and points that relate to that specific topic and point towards the understanding of that specific topic. If in your mind, while you're doing that, you move off point, off and into a different topic that isn't a way of understanding emptiness, then excitement's present. So the way that an analytical meditation on emptiness would go, would be making various reasons in your mind to establish emptiness. So the I is not truly established. Why is it not truly established? Because it dependently originates. It's like a reflected image. It does not have any independence from its own side. Why doesn't it have any independence from its own side? Because it dependently originates. So thinking in these terms and relying on reasons is analytical meditation. But if while you're doing that, the I is not truly established because it dependently originates, and you're thinking of reasons to establish emptiness, and if you go to a different topic than that, then that is wavering, and that's what you're looking to be free from in terms of excitement. And in terms of dullness, if, for instance, you're thinking of this object, and there are various levels of lethargy that can take place. There's a complete sleepiness, which would be a complete disconnect from the analysis because of sleepiness, or kind of a darkening of that object that you're analyzing, so it's not as clear. It's a kind of a lethargic, I hate to use that word, but like a lethargic way of looking in your mind at that topic while you're analyzing it. And then there can be a very, very subtle form of dullness that's present, where there isn't an absolute clarity in relation to that analysis. So there is reflection, and there is the mind thinking about various things, but the things that it's thinking about have to be specific in order for it to be free from those two extremes of excitement and laxity, lethargy, dullness.
Yeah.
So everybody good? Concluding mindful offering and dedication prayer. The fundamental ground is scented with incense and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this as a Buddha land and offer it. May all sentient beings enjoy this pure realm. I dedicate whatever virtues I've collected for the benefit of the teachings and of all sentient beings, and in particular for the essential teachings of Venerable Lobsang Drakpa to shine forever. I send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. I dedicate all this virtue to emulate the knowledge of the hero Manjushri and likewise Samantabhadra as well, with whatever dedication is praised as supreme by all the conquerors who traverse the 3 times. I also dedicate all my roots of virtue for the sake of auspicious deeds. In that pure land surrounded by snowy mountains, you are the source of all happiness. All-powerful Avalokiteshvara, Tenzin Gyatso, may stay until samsara's end. I pray for the long life of the precious Khensur Wandak, upholder of scriptural and realizational doctrines, spiritual friend who trained extensively in the 5 great philosophical texts with exceptional wisdom and perseverance. Tuji Rinpoche, Gutsi Shapi Denrolan, Khensur Lamrim.